5 minutes.
Okay. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Atheist.
Yes, your resident atheist is here. All right, so I get that you Christians believe, by the way, for those, if anybody here doesn't, I'm not really an atheist, but
So he says.
right. So I get that you Christians believe that there's justification for evil in the world, okay, based on a fallen world. I don't discount that. I understand the logical problem with that. But what I'm positing here, and I'm going to give you a deductive argument here in just a minute, and it's the logic is airtight. If the two premises are true, then the conclusion follows logically, and it's around gratuitous evil. We have many examples of gratuitous evil in the world. So example of gratuitous evil would be things that you cannot say that this evil serves a purpose for the greater good. Take a man who belongs to a remote village. His family is dead. He's by himself in the woods, and he becomes harmed and dies a very prolonged and excruciating pain. And what I would posit in my argument is that if God exists, then there is no such thing as gratuitous evil. But we have numerous examples throughout history, and we can even come up with examples like I've just done of gratuitous evil existing. And because gratuitous evil exists, then God doesn't exist. What say you, Christians?
So I just want to ask a question. How do you define evil? Because it sounds like he suffered.
Sure.
Is suffering necessarily evil?
It could be. You could use evil synonymous with pain, suffering. Evil is just kind of a catchword that I'm using for pain, suffering, and
Anything unpleasant in life?
yeah, anything that's not to the betterment of the human race.
I would say that it doesn't matter if the evil is gratuitous or not. I do not think that the existence of evil is incompatible with a loving God,
Okay.
who can redeem evil, any kind of evil, even though I might not be able to figure out, because I don't have an infinite mind, I'm not omnipotent, and I don't know how God will do it. But God has defeated evil on the cross, any kind of evil, in Jesus Christ. And He is going to reconcile the world to Himself, so He's allowed evil to exist. But evil is on, God has evil on a string. God has defeated evil on the cross. Gratuitous, non-gratuitous, whatever adjective you want to put on it. So I reject the notion because it's gratuitous or it's not gratuitous, because you said that the finite mind must come up with a reason that God could do or use, how God could use this. I don't have to figure out how God can use it.
So so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if I were to sum up what you're saying is that you just put your faith in God and believe that...
No, I'm saying the existence of gratuitous evil or any kind of evil is not incompatible with the existence of God.
Okay.
And you have not shown me any reason why it is. You've just harped on the fact that it's gratuitous, and a finite mind then, so if it's not gratuitous, you say that a finite mind must figure out or come up with a reason to say how God can use this evil for good. And because I can't come up with a reason, that means God don't exist. I reject that.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop because I only had 5 minutes and Ricky nailed it. Okay.
Well,
Did you see?
only a couple of people.
Do I have time for that?
Yeah, okay, let's get their opinions.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, my thinking is your definition of gratuitous evil. How did you come up with the definition that is evil? The situation that you came up with, the situation of the tsunami wiping out a village, and that kind of stuff. Is that evil? I don't consider that evil. I just figure that's an act of nature, but not necessarily evil. So
Okay.
how are you defining it, saying that this is actually evil, where man
Sure.
actually did action that caused this in order to cause a problem?
So when I'm defining evil, I'm answering the question of of we are looking at this fallen world that you believe in, okay, and we are addressing evil as pain and suffering, whether that be an evil committed by a sentient being or a natural evil. Okay, so what I'm defining as evil, I don't believe in this evil as being this substance, the boogeyman, the guy with the red suit and the pointy tail. I don't believe in that evil. I'm using the word evil to define pain and suffering, and seeing how that aligns with your scripture that says God's going to use everything for the good. Okay? Well, if he's going to use everything for the good, then what good is coming from a tsunami that wipes out 400,000 people? What good comes from a man who dies alone in the forest through a painful, excruciating death where there's no one around to see, nobody else's life to be affected? It's just this one person dying this excruciating death. There's no good that comes from that. That's what I'm defining as gratuitous evil.
And that's really the way the question is asked. If there is a loving God, why does he allow all this tragedy, all this stuff that hurts people, which is evil, right? They call it. Following up to what Ricky is saying, and that's exactly, you're right, he nailed it. Specifically to this scenario that you posed, you're making a judgment that God either didn't or could not redeem that for good. I would propose that that is again an overextension of your finite mind and your thinking. God can redeem that for good, giving that person an opportunity to look heavenwise and see his suffering and his helplessness in his human ability and look up to God.
Okay, good job.
All right, the last little point that I want to make here is that so what you identified in that was he saw that what I was trying to point out, the underneath of my argument was finding a contradiction with your belief and trying to skirt around the logical problem of evil. The logical problem of evil is that if evil exists, God doesn't exist, right? Because if God exists, and he's all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, he would want to, he could, and he would know how to eradicate evil, right? So that's the logical problem. What I'm saying is gratuitous, and what you guys hit on was the angle of perception or the angle of view from a finite mind. It's like me sitting here and saying that there is not a grasshopper in the sanctuary. Can you tell me if there's a grasshopper in the sanctuary? Well, I don't know if there is one because I can't see it. For me to say there is no grasshopper in the sanctuary, I have to know about every inch of space in the sanctuary in order to know if a grasshopper exists. By positing that there's no gratuitous evil is to say, I know all circumstances that possibly could be used to take this situation and use it for good. And you can't do that unless you're positing that you yourself are God. Right. So you do a Morian shift at this point, and basically you take, Morian shift just comes from G.E. Moore, and what he does is he takes the syllogism that was used, that 3-point argument, and he says that, if God exists, gratuitous evil does not exist. Gratuitous evil does not exist, therefore God exists. Okay? So what I've done is I've just taken their deductive argument and flipped it on its head.
Good. Good job, guys. All right. Who had to read? I'm sorry. I'm not going to copy the book and paste it and do all my gyrations because I'm making all kinds of breaking all kind of copyright laws. Go ahead.
Okay, just real quick. They need host homes for Journey 2020. That's coming up soon. So if you're interested, I'm just going to leave this back here. They need provide a place for 8 to 12 students to sleep. So I'm just going to leave this back here. The other thing is, church wants me to remind y'all to please wear name tags. So I'm going to have these available each week when you come in. If you don't have a name tag, please put one on, and please check in at the kiosk in the hallways. That's all.
All right. Where do those who have never heard of Jesus, and I know I said ever on the one I sent out because I fixed it last night, stand with God. The assertion is people cannot avail themselves to redemption, they have no knowledge of it. Why can that answer not be found based on cultural placement, where they live? Why does that not apply to where you live? Well, I grew up a Hindu. Well, I grew up an Islamist in the Middle East. Why does that assertion not work? Joe?
Oh, I'm looking for no, God reveals himself to everyone, everywhere, at all times.
Yeah.
So it's not a placement.
Okay.
So God the Father, if you will, is revealed clearly to everyone.
Okay.
So that argument basically is not valid.
It's a good point. Linda?
Well, Sproul says sin is universal, and therefore it doesn't matter where you're
Doesn't matter.
born out.
Sin's everywhere. Doesn't matter where you're born. Okay? So, okay, avail ourselves of redemption. Well, sin's everywhere. What are you going to do about it? Yes, you were going to say something?
Well, frequently that question is modified where they don't know Jesus, because that's the reason why, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. The only way the Father is through me.
Yeah.
They don't know Jesus.
We're coming up to that.
Yes, I understand that, yeah.
Always trying to get to the end of the book. What is the obvious answer to how an innocent person never hearing of Jesus can be saved?
If they're innocent, they don't need to be saved.
Thank you.
Cool.
That's, innocent person doesn't need redemption. What about the innocent person in Australia? Oh, who is he?
They're fine.
He's fine.
Where is he at? Because if he is innocent, right? Don't need redemption. That begs the question, which is,
What about the guilty person?
no, close.
Who was innocent?
That's it. Are they truly innocent? Innocent of what? It comes back to the word sin again, which is an archery term, right? Missed the mark. How does Christianity view such a condition of innocence for anyone? It's one verse. We love quoting it.
For all of sin.
Thank you. Romans 3:23, and it says,
Fallen short of this world.
all have sinned and let's use all archery terms here. For all have sinned and missed the mark of God's holiness. Okay? It's another way to say it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Go ahead.
But again, the sin missing the mark implies somebody knowledgeable actually shooting for a mark, which
Yeah.
does implies a degree of knowledge and understanding.
Yeah.
For instance, an infant hasn't sinned,
Sin is universal.
but an infant hasn't committed personal sin.
It's imputed to him through Adam.
Right? That's a different thing than what Roman is talking about. He's saying all have sinned, an act of sinning, missing the mark. An infant hasn't.
It's
Go
a
ahead.
denominational debate here.
Hold on.
I think most Protestants would hold
Sense
children,
that.
children would be saved.
Good, Linda.
So that's a little different.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, the imputation of sin,
Uh-huh.
but I'm saying on the concept of personal sin, I'm differentiating between the two types of sin, is what I'm pointing out.
Good.
Okay, so I'm kind of with John that missing the
What?
mark isn't really, it's a little different answer to universal sin. Missing the mark is kind of more applies to somebody who thinks they can achieve their own righteousness by their own efforts.
But isn't that what the world's doing?
That's a little different angle to the end. They're both true, but
All right, we're going to go to archery class after this, so we can understand what we're talking about.
I'm with Steve.
Okay?
The mark is the glory of God. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And the glory of God is revealed in creation and conscience.
Everything else.
That's it.
I mean, it's the equivalent of looking around, seeing everything that is made, and going, oh, this just happened. This just created itself. You've missed the mark. Semantics, maybe.
There's no one good, no, not one.
I kinda go with, that like a little baby don't even know that's a mark.
What?
A little baby doesn't care about a mark, or, you know, he's worried about getting something to eat.
Okay.
And then, you know, you my point, I mean, he don't know about, you know, missing a mark, or, he's innocent, I guess.
Yeah, I get that.
Blameless, but at the same time, what are you comparing off of? Like, what is your perfect model? If you're like comparing yourself to yourself or like an idol that you have, then it's like they're gonna fall short.
An
They're
infant
not
still
perfect.
has a fallen nature. I mean, since the fall, we understand that. We understand that imputation,
yeah.
that tendency to
Yeah.
sin. They don't have the opportunity to actually commit willful sin.
In a minute, he's gonna talk about invincible
So
versus
again-
invincible,
So
and like
what
the
about
infant will be
Romans
invincible.
1?
So if they
Romans
haven't sinned, are
1,
they
because
perfect?
Romans
And
1.
what is their definition of perfect? And what are they comparing that to?
So you're saying, in your, and I'm gonna really go out, I'm gonna pull the roof off this one. All babies are God.
No,
Well, that's what you just said. They haven't sinned yet.
you're putting words in my mouth.
What did you say then?
I'm just unaware.
I said that babies still have a fallen nature, but they haven't exercised a willful disobedience to God.
So all men have a fallen nature and have fallen short of the glory of God, have missed the mark.
Baby's not
What's
man,
the
though.
difference?
I think the underlying question here is what happens to a child or a baby if that baby dies?
Well, we can talk
Is
about
there,
that.
and I'm not trying to make an assumption here, but
Okay.
I think that's the underlying premise that may be driving the question is that is a baby who doesn't have the cognitive ability to reason with the scriptures, reason with their fallen nature, reason with the salvation that Christ
Uh-huh.
provides, dies, does that, it's the question of is there an age of accountability?
Yeah,
I get that. But that's
I
what,
hear that.
to that I say, that's why I serve a loving, just
Right.
God.
Right,
He'll make that decision.
Yeah.
I don't have providence to make that decision.
right.
So,
And I think we agree on that.
yeah, I think we do.
Yeah.
So,
But it's good that John raised that because in the course of conversation, if you
Somebody
remember,
could-
we're talking about how do we respond to these. That is likely to come up because people's minds are racing, saying, "What about this? What about that?" So it behooves us to have, you know, the answer rather
Right.
than because at first when we were, you know, initiated the conversation, it sounded like the prevailing argument was that baby is guilty and he's going to hell. That seemed, and so we have to be very careful.
Yeah.
We
that's
have to
what's
be
up.
very careful.
I got
know
it.
that was not the intent, but that if we had answered it that way to someone that was truly asking a question.
And as we take the roof off, this goes all the way back to babies that haven't even been born.
Correct.
You know, it's saying that that baby somehow in the womb is guilty of their sin prior to even being born.
Right.
And
That's what
Yeah.
that would imply. But knowing that that's what you're actually saying, so the baby's going to hell? No, I'm not saying that.
right.
I can neither confirm nor deny that this person is going to hell or is saved, like in anything, because that's what we believe in God.
Look, what Steve last said is that we are not God. We don't know every situation and every.
We don't have the providence. You're going to say something?
That
I
we
was
have.
gonna say, there is some indication in the Bible that that baby's going to heaven. Just when David lost his first son
Yes.
with Bathsheba,
Yes.
he said that he could go to
Yeah.
heaven with a
But as I
baby.
said, because again, I'm going to go back to Peter Kreeft again, in the case of our faith. What about all those kids that were killed? He brought up the point about sending in an emissary saying, hey, we're getting ready to attack, get rid of the women and children. And the ones who stayed and fought, it's possible that they were killed before the age of accountability.
Right.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
Even though they might be killed before the age of accountability, don't mean that they're sinless.
No.
Yeah.
You can say Christ's sin covered that, and God is saying that on the basis of certain things, I'm going to make an exception for you.
Right.
To say that the baby, nobody is sinless. The Bible is clear about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
All have sinned, and all means all.
I always fall back on, that's why I worship a loving, just God. He's going to make the right choice. I'm not going to have to.
Right, I think my comment about that comes back to, well, two things. One, how do you define sin, and do you distinguish between the imputed, unrighteous nature that we've inherited and personal sin? And two, the interpretation of Romans, because I don't see him when saying everybody has sinned. I think he's using some of his grandiose language, which Paul does sometimes.
Yeah, he does.
And I think in this case, you can clearly say he's not talking about the infants in the womb. They haven't sinned. They have a sinful nature, but they have not committed personal sin. And that may be a distinction that only matters if you differentiate between the types of sin.
So did Christ
But
die for?
They do have sin.
Yes.
They have
So did
sinned.
Christ die for our
They have
imputed
sin.
sin
Babies
or
have
the sins
sin.
we've made?
But not-
Yes, because in
Yeah,
Psalm,
yeah, it's
Psalm
technical.
58:3, it says, even from
Yeah.
birth the wicked go astray. From the womb they are wayward, spreading lies.
Wait,
That
do
was
it
in
again.
Psalm.
Do it again.
Have
Hold on.
There's an active element.
Go ahead.
Say it again.
In Psalm 58:3, it says, even from birth the wicked go astray. From the womb they are wayward, spreading lies. So, we are all children of Adam. We are born in sin.
Thank you.
And we are all in need of a savior. Even a baby is in need of a savior.
Which comes
because
like my
we
same
are
question.
a child of Adam.
Did Christ die for our imputed sin or just the sins we committed while we were already?
Right. And that can get very.
We were really
So we have to separate the fact that no one is without sin.
Yes.
Universally, and we all agree on that. And we all need the love of Christ, the sacrifice.
No doubt.
Even if we don't even know about it, we all
Correct.
need it, right? So whether it's the imputed sin or act of the will, Jesus is still the answer to cover all that. And with
Yes.
babies, obviously, we
Right.
say we trust that God will make that, and through Jesus will redeem, regardless of what type of sin it is.
Yeah.
Show of
And
hands. Who
proper-
here sinned before they became a Christian?
Obviously.
Who here knew it was a sin before they became a Christian?
Yes. I knew.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
an intrinsic
Some of us, yes,
understanding.
some of them.
That's the only way I can claim ignorance. I'm going to go there.
Morality.
The Bible says that we're all dead in trespasses and sin. You're born, stillborn,
Yeah.
spiritually stillborn. And I can say, I wasn't there in the garden, so I didn't sin. Adam, so why are you blaming me for Adam's sin? But God is saying, if you were there, you would have sinned too, Richie. And that baby, when that baby is born and
Yeah,
reaches
I always love that
it
argument.
would sin.
Oh no,
Yes.
I would have held out.
Yes.
All right.
Because we don't have to teach a child to not lie. I mean, to lie. We have to teach them not to lie. And in Proverbs 22:15 it says, "Folly is bound up in the heart of a child."
Correct.
And even David admitted that even he said, surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me. Because
Wow.
we are all born of Adam. We are all sinful. We need a savior.
Absolutely.
The fact that we need a savior
Proves we are sinful.
proves that we are sinful.
Last word, Tiffany.
Oh, I just have a both ridiculous and serious question at the same time. So do we have to repent for imputed sin?
Isn't that what coming to Christ is all about?
I mean, well, right, I understand that, but,
Okay.
yeah, but, but stuff we didn't do.
It's almost a moot point, because if we are old, if we have the understanding that we need to repent, we repent of all sin, right?
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Moving on. We gotta move on.
How did we get that? How did we go that way?
Here we're getting there. Back on the trail here, guys.
We went for a tangent.
Ken,
Therefore, only
we have to move on.
sins that you did not know you committed.
No bad habit.
Second.
This is going to have to be a whole class in itself.
So how do we respond to the assertion that the guilty person never heard of Christ? You hear this all the time. What about the average user who never heard of Jesus? How do you respond to it?
Well, according to Sproul, okay, you never heard about Christ, and so God might give you an out there, but God might say, you've heard about me though. You've heard about the triune God, because God reveals himself in creation, conscience, and fully, completely in Christ.
Yeah. God's justice prevents him from condemning such a soul. His justice would prevent him from doing that.
just for that reason.
What is the conundrum?
Now you're saying,
No,
He
this is
would
what
not-
Sproul said.
Sproul said,
God's justice would prevent him from condemning such a soul, one who never heard of Jesus.
on that issue.
On that issue.
Yes, and that is.
That's correct.
Okay. What is the conundrum of keeping silent to such a person?
If you tell them, then they're on the hook.
Yep, double jeopardy.
Christian, can you read that?
Yeah, silence keeps them ignorant and in previous position with God's justice, but telling them about Christ enables him to refuse and be condemned.
You're in a real tight spot. You can let them stay here and feel that, well, maybe they're okay. They're ignorant, but maybe they're okay. But if you tell them, now, as John said, they're on the hook.
Yeah, but the position that we have to take is that everybody needs Jesus because everybody has rejected or distorted God the Father that has revealed himself to all creation. So they already need Jesus, whether they've heard of him or not.
Mm-hmm.
This gives them an opportunity to step away from their position of having rejected or distorted God and saying, I understand the gospel.
Good point. Yes, Ken.
We'll see if you guys go through it.
Okay.
I'll wait for you guys.
What about the person who knows about God, the Father, and rejects him? If the innocents and ignorant have nothing to fear, who should be fearing?
If the innocent and ignorant have nothing to fear, well, who is innocent?
The ignorant and the guilty.
Close. It's in Romans. The wicked and ungodly. Right? And Romans says, you're my reader today.
Okay. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness.
Anybody who's ungodly, anybody who's wicked. Okay? Leads on to the next question. How can we discover that kind of wickedness and ungodliness? A little trick in the Bible. When you see something, read on. Because the next thing's going to tell you.
Idolatry and religion.
Good.
Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. So the people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened.
That's wickedness and ungodliness. Okay? That's it. Who has God revealed himself to in this passage? Everybody.
Creation.
Nobody's with excuse. You don't have an excuse here. Okay? So what's our problem?
It's changing the truth of God for a lie.
You refuse to acknowledge truth. We refuse to acknowledge God. Right?
Yes.
Pilate says to Christ, what is truth? You're
Then he
looking
can
right
wait for
at
an
him.
answer.
You're looking right at him.
Well, because in acknowledging, they openly condemn themselves.
That's right. It's a little further on in Romans, isn't it?
Yeah, we're coming to that.
Is the general revelation enough for mankind?
No.
For those who haven't heard.
Yes, in the sense that, yeah, they're found to be
Yeah,
without
that's-
excuse based on it.
Just based on nature alone, without excuse. Whoever saw the movie The Gods must be crazy.
That was great.
What happens?
Well, these people were flying over, I guess it was Australia.
Yeah.
Where the Aborigines were. And they were so-called Christians, you know, can be secular, but they knew about God. And they threw a Coke bottle down, and that Aborigine went out there and said, "Oh, what's wrong? The gods must be crazy. Something is happening. God is upset. This thing just came down from heaven." And it was from the airplane. They had thrown a Coke bottle. And so the Aborigine went, picked it up, showed all of his tribesmen, something's going on. God must be crazy or something, because he's throwing
throwing
us
Coke
out
bottles at us.
and it came out of the sky from nowhere.
That's, if you're walking around, you see something that's abnormal, how'd that get there, right? That's what nature's saying. Something created this.
It's interesting that David said, the heavens declare the glory of God, firmament declares handiwork. Night after night or day after night, what did he say? It poured forth speech.
Yep.
It's pretty condemning.
What excuse does the passage eliminate? Well, it will, but it really eliminates one main thing according to Sproul.
Ignorance.
Thank you. Ignorance.
Got one right.
I'm not into it either.
Can other religious people claim ignorance?
No.
Hmm.
Oh, actually.
Why?
Because they've exchanged the truth for a lie.
Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal human beings and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore God gave them over in their sinful desires of their hearts to the sexual impurity for the denigration of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised.
Ricky, you're on fire today, man. Why are pagans? What is a pagan, by the way? Anybody know what a pagan is?
Worship nature.
It's a deviation from religion.
That's it.
Worship anything other than God.
Yeah. I heard some woman call into one of the talk shows and they're like, "I'm a pagan." Oh, what is a pagan? I've never had a pagan call before. Well, I believe in God, a God, and a lot of gods. Okay. Well, what are some of the names of these other gods? She starts going, Odin, Zeus. It's like, okay. You just got a potpourri. You're covering all your bases. The law written on their hearts. This is the one thing, I mean, even when I was before Christ, there was something in my heart that said, I know something's right and something's wrong.
Yeah.
And unless you're not honest with yourself, you're not going to admit that. It's always on their hearts. What is the second question that a Christian must ask? Anybody remember this?
What happens to me if I don't do anything about this?
What happens if I never utter a word about His salvation? What happens?
You're still good.
What happened to the servant that buried his talent in the ground?
Wow.
What happens is that person, you may be the last person they see before they die. And you didn't share the gospel with them. There's a million ways to share the gospel. Don't think because you're an apologist or you're looking at it being an apologist, you're trying to just do everything you can to be an apologist. You're not sharing the gospel. You're doing it through song, through writing. Go ahead, Linda.
That's a very important thing to think about, because back during my backsliding days, I had two friends separately that committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I had no idea that's where they're at, and I was not spiritually sensitive
Right.
anyway, but that's real.
There's 1,000 ways to do it, guys. Feel the Souls. Song by Wayne Watson. Remember it? No. Guess I was the only one listening to it back then.
No, I listened to it. What was it?
Field of Souls.
Who's Wayne Watson?
One shouts the gospel in the street for everyone to hear. He is bold to everyone he meets, and the word is loud and clear. And another sits alone and prays on silence on their knees before throwing after day. In silence on their knees. It's a it's a great thing saying, feel the souls. There's 1,000 workers doing different things. Okay? You do it with your legal mind, right? You do it with your teaching mind. Right? You do it with your mothering mind. And you're a teacher too, right? Okay. Ricky, engineer. Chemist. Quit taking so much chemistry though. Joe, with a retired mind.
Hey, Joe's a part-time handyman now.
I saw the shot, there was no danger.
That's
so I
right.
took it.
You took it.
He's flipping houses. Slowly.
Okay. Objection 4 is chapter 4. Christianity is just a crutch for weak people. What is the root of that statement?
That God is weak.
It's made up.
No, that
It's
we
not
are
true.
weak. That we are weak.
That no,
no
that
evidence for it
everyone,
whatsoever.
that
And yes, I am weak, so I need Christ.
that everyone else is not also walking on a crutch.
Right. That there are people who are better than you.
Yeah.
You're just weak. You need something to hold you up.
Inferior. Yeah.
Right. Religion was created. That's the assertion. Sum up what Freud stated regarding man's invention of religion. You remember this? It's in the book.
You need a savior. You're odd, overwhelmed. You feel lonely, and this nature is overpowering, and you know, so it's a psychological crutch for you to.
Okay. Sproul said, according to Freud, by religion, nature is made sacred and personal, so that its threatening power is brought under control. Right? What is a point that can be made about made against that belief? This is not in your book. It's something you should be able to think through. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, nature's power is not being brought under control.
Where have we seen nature brought under control? Other than through Jesus.
Right.
Okay. Other than through Jesus. Can you go after the tornado and go, stop? And the tornado winds back up?
And he goes on to make the point that actually God is a lot more threatening than nature.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was an interesting point.
Gosh.
Some of what Marx felt. That the rich invented religion.
Oh, yeah.
Opium of the people.
Yeah.
Open to the masses. Why does that argument not work for the atheist?
Because it's the methamphetamine of the masses.
Huh?
Because the atheist got his own psychological approach.
Yeah.
He don't want God to exist because he's going to be held accountable.
If religion is the opiate of the masses, then non-religion is the opiate of the proletariat.
Yeah. And they killed a lot more people.
And they kill a lot more people. We saw that in the last study or last week? Was it last, it was last study?
Several times.
Saw the last study. So the atheist can't say anything. Your crutch is just as big as ours and more deadly.
It leads to a much more time.
Yes.
I've got a question about that. So, just to understand, so Marx says that the rich invented religion for the masses to control them,
Control them.
but that the rich themselves didn't believe in the religion, that it was just something that they created
Tool, yeah.
to use to try to control the masses.
First thing they did with Lenin in Russia, all religious, wipe it out. Anything religion, wipe it out.
Okay, so they thought they were bringing some equality to the people by getting rid of religion?
Yeah, some
Yeah.
higher level of thinking.
Because we know they weren't controlling at all.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
They just went door to door and took all
Such a
people's
well-oiled
food
democracy.
utensils.
Marxism is, yeah. It's,
Yeah. How many people here
it's a
know?
lie.
Yeah.
How many people here know
It's a
that
lie.
Russia was founded on religious principles?
Like what?
I wouldn't be real
What?
surprised by that.
Russia was founded on religious
Russian
principles.
Orthodox.
Yeah, Russian Orthodox.
The Rus, thank you. Land of the Rus.
Say that again, what?
Land of the Rus.
What's that?
Jonathan.
The Rus, it was a people who were in that region.
RUSS, I guess that's where.
That's where the word Russian.
Yep.
Who were the Rus?
It was a very bloody conversion. I want to say that much.
Like,
No, I was
Oh.
just
Yeah,
straight.
but I mean, what was
Christianity
religion?
was
Rus
brought
was
No, Christianity.
Christianity. Oh, when Christianity was introduced there,
Yes.
they went and wiped out all
And
the
there was,
non-Christians.
well, no, there was a fight over Christianity, and Christianity won out until Lenin. Lenin wiped it all out because that's the first thing you have to do in a socialist or communist world. Wipe it out.
So it was a big lie then.
Oh,
So Marx
absolutely.
invented this lie about religion being invented by the rich to control the masses, so that then he could control the masses by saying, give up your religion.
I don't think Marx invented it. Marx's social analysis of the reality of society comes from his economic determinism. He examined the society and he said, look, when I examine how societies evolve, when I look at capitalism, the class that is the ruling class, they control the consciousness of the people through the media and everything. And these things have a way of giving stability to the status quo. All these ideas, whether it could be religion, racism, and this is how they analyze it. And to overthrow it, I have to overthrow all those ideas. I have to attack all those ideas. I have to attack religion. So it's his economic analysis that makes him see that. He's not saying that they just kind of like invented it. He's saying that capitalism has its own logic, internal logic, that produces ideas that give capitalism stability. And to overthrow that, I got to overthrow all the ideas. I got to attack all the ideas.
Yes.
And come up with my new ideas.
Exactly. But Marx is not alone. Because the Communist Manifesto was written by Marx and Engels.
Engels, yeah.
So there's two people involved with this. How Lenin gets in, that's a very interesting story. There's a book by Brian, I can't think of his last name, but he wrote a book called Rise and Fall of the USSR. And it outlines everything. It's like unreal. So, we'll move on. Question, if there is no God, why is there religion? Finish this statement. The fact that man has the ability to invent God is obvious.
That does not necessarily mean that he did. There's other reasons for the existence of.
Very good. Yes, man has the ability. Man also has the ability to build a bridge to the moon.
Now,
But he hasn't.
Bridge.
Doesn't mean that he did. What overrides the assertion that the existence of religion proves the existence of God? Something that overrides it.
Our knowledge of the existence of God is also founded in some other principles, like the self-revelation of God in Scripture, in Christ. So,
Is this the thing about counting noses?
I think so.
Like, people's belief in something is not a measure of its validity.
Yeah.
So it's like people say, oh, I don't agree with this or that or the other thing. That's not an argument against it being true or not true.
Sure.
None of that is evidence.
Don't use that as your evidence. Well, some people believe in God.
So people, scientists say,
I mean,
well, who cares?
you're treading in the wrong place.
I have to share something that was kind of cool that happened to me this week. That is on that topic about believing something doesn't make it necessarily true. I was at my chiropractor and I was getting the massage, and we somehow got on the topic of the Bible, and the massage therapist says, well, I personally, let's see, what did she said a lot of things, and I'm trying to boil it down for you. But what was cool is my response to her. She was saying something like, oh, I personally believe that, the Bible, you can't really, it's been changed so much over time. I said, oh, really? Why do you think that? And,
Tactics,
so,
very
yeah, I
good.
know, I was like, God help me.
And just last week, she was saying that she was not good at this stuff. Remember?
I let
In
you
class?
call her out on that. I saw that, yeah.
It was typical, random, all over the place, Amy style, but God was in it, okay? So, anyway, so I just asked her, I said, oh, really? So, why do you think that? And she says, well, I just, because it's been so many years, and it was written by man, and so, and I said, oh. And I said, well, do you have any evidence of that? And she says, what do you mean? I said, like, let's say we found something in archaeology a few thousand years ago, and I don't know, maybe it's papyrus, maybe it's something chipped in stone or something. We deciphered it and we looked at it and we were like, oh, this is like an early copy or something of the Ten Commandments. And we looked at it and we're like, wait a second, it's totally different than the Ten Commandments we have in our Bible today. Oh, this is, what would you think? You'd think, what? It got changed.
Mhm.
I said, but you know what? Have you heard about the Qumran caves? I said, they found 2,000-year-old scrolls, and it had almost all the Bible on it. And you know, when they compared it to the Bible we have today, it's virtually the same.
Old Testament.
Yeah, and I told her, I said, you know, I know it's really popular if you get on the internet and stuff, and a lot of people, it's not PC, it's really not, you know, smart to believe in the Bible these days. I said, but there's a tremendous amount of evidence that proves the Bible we have today is extremely accurate. Extremely accurate. And I just told her, I said, do you believe about this guy named Julius Caesar, that he existed? And she goes, well, I don't know. And I was like, okay, maybe that was a strategy.
But that's a good point, because at this point, you can't know anything.
That's what, so I told her, I said, well, historians believe pretty strongly that he was a ruler, a Roman ruler, and that he did exist. I said, they have probably less than 10 documents proving, you know, that point to his existence.
2 years after, 2
And I said,
years after the fact.
and I said, but you know, with what we have from the Bible, we have hundreds of documents.
Thousands.
And I said, probably thousands. And I said, we have hundreds. And I said, so I know it's really popular and that you're going to see if you go looking on the internet, things like that. I said, but serious scholars, if they will tell you that there's no doubt that Jesus lived and died, and many of them are pretty pointed toward the fact that he rose again too.
Go, Amy! I love
Yeah.
it. Good job.
So anyway, it was just really random and crazy, and the whole time, and she was kind of captive because she was having to work on me. But it was kind of a neat experience.
No, but you did leave her with a more sort of, well, she
yeah,
even
there were
accepted that
several
Amy
pebbles
was
left
gonna
over there.
send her some additional.
Yeah, I actually did right then and there. I sent her.
She defended her faith.
I love it.
With your apologetic self.
You
But
are,
the Holy
you
Spirit,
are an
the
apologist.
Holy Spirit was in it
No
though,
doubt.
and that was the thing. And I told Joe, I said, you know, I feel like, because I've been studying this stuff for 5 or 6 years, and I'm like, God, I just cannot do this, you know. And he had this great experience at the Burger King a few weeks back, and it was so smooth and awesome, and it wasn't like that for me at all. It was just all over the place. We were talking about things, and
Most of them are.
and
Most of them are always all over.
because one of the things she said in the middle of all of it, as we were, you know, talking, she says, well, you know, I don't usually think it's a good idea to talk about religion and politics and stuff, you know. And I said, oh, I said, I understand. I said, do you not want to talk about this? And she says, no, I don't mind, but I just know that people, you know, it's not a good idea. And I
After
said,
you brought it up.
and I said, well, you know, I said, I want you to know that I love to talk about it. So if you want to talk about it, I'm totally open. I said, but if you don't, I respect that. And I said, but I said, sometimes I think people say that a lot because they just want to shut you down.
Mhm.
So I just kind of gave her that, and I also told her.
Great point.
I also told her that, I said, but you know, if people do really value their faith and they really believe, because she had a Catholic background, and she says, we just didn't know much about the Bible. And I said, you know, I hear that sometimes.
Uh-oh.
You know,
Careful.
I hear that sometimes. And she said,
There's a lot of Christians too.
she said, we would have Jehovah's Witnesses come to our house and do Bible study with us. And she said, but they couldn't answer a lot of my questions. And I said, well, that's probably not a good idea if you wanted to know about Christ to get your teaching from them or from the Mormons. But later she said to me, she said, I think that you should be friendly to everybody and all. And so I don't think it's a good idea sometimes to talk about religion politics. I was like, well, how is that being unfriendly?
Good point.
But anyway, she said, well, you said earlier that we shouldn't be friends with Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons. I don't think that's right. I said, wait a second, did I say not to be friends? She says, or to condemn. I said, did I say condemn? I said, no, I just said if you want to know about Jesus, you should read the Bible and study the Bible from people who have followed Jesus. And I
Right.
said, the Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe Jesus is God.
Right.
And that's all I said.
Good
so
for
I mean,
you.
we were all over the place. I'm sorry, I took too much time.
It's a
but-
great example though. Great example. Shows what we're doing. It's good.
But boy, she was trying to shut me down left and right here. Yet at the same time,
Is that
still
right?
asking questions.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was weird.
Can I make a quick comment on what she said? What I heard there too is that people read between the lines
Yep.
and they fill in gaps with things that you didn't say.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay? And that happens all the time, and you have to be aware of it.
We have to listen very carefully.
Yeah, you have to listen very carefully, because you say a word and they go over
Yep.
here because of their past experience.
Yeah.
Good
And
point.
you didn't mean anything by that word other than
Correct.
the strict meaning of the word, but
Yeah.
they read
But they did, yeah,
double and triple into it.
And I gently called her on that. I said, no,
It's good.
Natalie. I used her name. I said, no, Natalie. I did not.
Oh, you
I did
used
not say
Natalie.
condemn, and I
Right.
did not say not be friends.
Which is
I
great.
said,
That's all you can
I
do.
have
Point it out to
very
them.
dear to my heart people who are Mormons and Jehovah's Witness that I love very much, and I'm not going to stop being kind and friendly to them.
That's right.
But because I love them, I'm going to keep pursuing truth.
That's it. Great way to sum it up. Speaking of filling in the blanks, fill in the blanks.
Nice transition.
Blank is to assuming that man created God as the blank blank is to psychological motives for what? What's the first one? You remember this?
Yeah.
Psychology is to assuming that man created God as the
New Testament
Thank you.
is to atheism. It's to psychology. Yeah. Okay.
So the New Testament gives us psychological motives for atheism.
It took me a while to figure that out. I was asking, I was like, what does he mean by this?
I don't know what that means.
If psychology is assuming that man created God, it's the equivalent of saying that the New Testament created atheism.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Okay? How would you define a higher power, you pagans?
And yet so many people use it, don't they? Well, I believe in a higher power.
Is that the government? I mean, what's the higher power?
Yeah. Well, in Soviet Russia it was.
That's right. The force.
How do you define this?
Are you asking us or based on the book?
What you've heard, how would they define a higher power?
It's somebody higher than yourself.
Somebody higher than myself. John, you're a little taller, right?
You can take them out at the knees though.
Get him!
But I'll fall out.
Right there. Right there. Right there.
Still not a bad scouting report.
Somebody give me grace for my sins.
Secrets around here.
Somebody who's more knowledgeable than yourself,
Yeah.
has more power than you as far as influence.
Give us grace for our sins so we can become righteous.
Oh. Well, who's that by?
God.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. It's like we need someone to feel grace.
Yeah.
It's good. I mean,
What I thought RC brought out that was kind of interesting here that had always kind of rolled around the back of my mind but I had not really brought it out was why do we not refer to a highest power?
that is a great point.
Because they don't want to.
Because we don't want to.
That's
We
right.
want we want a God, but we
That's
want to
right.
attain God. We want a God that's a little better and can do a little bit more for us, but who still, does what we want him to.
We want the baby Jesus in the manger. We want the Jesus who wanted to die
Like
for us on the
Talladega
cross.
Nights.
We do not want the Jesus who's coming back in Revelation.
True story. Help me.
They want the lamb but not the
You,
lamb.
when you're looking at higher power versus highest power, higher power means you're comparing it to one other level.
Oh,
When you use highest power, there are
Exactly.
multiple levels in between.
That's right.
great point.
He's the
Great
most
point.
high God.
So let's look for the highest power. So they say, well, I believe in a higher power. Well, I believe in the highest power. So my guy, Chuck Schumer. I said Trump and so on.
Oh, it's just Trump.
Right.
I know. But he said Trump.
Oh.
Trump
What are the
supporters.
5 things Sproul mentions that might evoke fear of him? Here's the first one. Why does that evoke fear?
Because we're unholy.
Ooh.
We are deeply
Become.
Say again?
We can become holy.
Hopefully we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holiness. What is that like?
by the root of it, it indicates a separation.
Yeah.
Separation from all that's good, all that is pure.
Yeah. I mean, most of the class everyone went through the theology program, right?
Yeah.
And where's God?
Above the arch.
Above the arch. He's totally separate from everything else. So that's a little fearful.
Isn't
Can't get there.
Isn't holiness in the Bible kind of attributed to light, and it dispels?
Yeah, it usually has an acronym of light, with
Yeah, and it usually dispels darkness. So to be unholy means that it cannot be cast in the presence of that light. So
Correct.
That's why I think it's a good analogy.
It's like cockroaches scattering when the light turns on. I had it happen once. I was scared. How about omniscience? Why would that be fearful?
There's nowhere you can hide.
Because
Is
we
he
like to
always
lie.
knows everything?
Say that again.
Because we like to lie.
We like to lie. Is that a lie?
Is that a lie?
How'd you know? You gotta ask the other guard.
Yeah. There's no, I
That's a
mean,
good call.
you may think you're fooling God. You're only fooling yourself.
Yeah.
Sovereignty. Why is that a fearful position to be in?
We want autonomy.
We do. The job I'm working in now, before they hire me, said, what two things do we want out of a job? Autonomy and direction. Which kind of like oxymorons.
Pretty,
I mean,
pretty
they're both like,
paradoxical.
okay.
One, it means rule over.
That's
so
it.
he's going to rule over you.
He has,
Oh my
he's
goodness.
in charge of everything. You can't get around.
Sovereignty implies authority. Authority implies, obligation and
Accountability.
consequences
That's right.
for not fulfilling.
Good point.
This was an excellent section.
Omnipotence.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Why?
Powerful.
So it's tied to the other ones. Like I love that.
They're
he
all
talks
tied
about,
together.
When he calms the storm, and all of a sudden they're more afraid of him than they are of the storm. And that's very
Bring the storm
rational.
back. Bring the storm back.
That's very rational.
I'll deal with the storm, but I don't want to deal with him anymore.
Yeah.
I'll take my
Forces.
chances, dude. That's right.
That was Jonah, right?
Yeah.
I'll take
Yes.
the test in the sea.
Yeah.
All right. Immutability. Why would something that never changes be? What do I have to fear from that?
You're not gonna convince God that you're right. You're not going to get him to acquiesce to what you want.
Yeah. What's the best example of that? In the Bible.
Satan
Where?
at the beginning, where he
That's a good one. But where's the better
where
one?
he defied God, or tried to at least.
Temptation in the desert.
Say it again.
The temptation in the desert.
Yes.
Well, you should say it loud.
Who said that? Why don't you yell it out?
You gotta say it loud.
The temptation in the
That's
desert.
not in the
It's a
book.
great example
That's not in the book.
of Satan trying to convince God to not be God.
Right.
That's
Go ahead.
not in the book.
One of the most awesome things about God, and all of these are some of his attributes,
Yeah.
that's something we can barely even comprehend, is that he is a different kind of being. We think about him as just this perfect kind of person, but we still relate it to ourselves. But he's not like us.
Yeah.
He's made us in his image. So part of us is like him because he's made us that way, but he's to just ponder that he's a different kind of being.
And that is part of his holiness, transcendent order.
Yeah.
Other.
He's still
Other.
other.
How many people think of Gandalf as God?
No.
Or at least that's your visual of who what God
Actually,
is.
Gandalf's not because he's very other
I know that.
compared to them.
I know that. Some people have that's where I envision God to be. Yes.
I think one of the other things that's really intimidating about immutability is that there is nothing in our perceptive reality that doesn't change.
That's true.
The sheer passage of time is a change in state of being. So it's we're overwhelmed by non-change, like by change.
Mhm.
It's in every conceivable dimension written into the laws of physics.
We
So-
can't imagine something not changing. And here's God.
You just need to accept the theory of time.
Amy?
What Will brought out that I think was just really chilling when you really think about it is the fact that if God is who he says he is, immutable, unchanging, he's never like Sproul says, he's never gonna compromise,
No.
never gonna, I mean, his standards are not gonna change, and if we're gonna get along with him, we have to be the ones that change. So I was like, wow. You know, it was so convicting.
Okay.
Well, one thing that when you think about this, super scary, is when you read the word.
It reads
It was written 2,000, 3,000 years ago. And that same word applies today. How have we modified it to fit our society, to fit our lives? Now, we're not following the word exactly the way God had written it back then. That has not changed. I don't think there's a passage in there that says you can modify my word and make it live with this society.
No. And if man had changed it, it certainly would say, thou shalt not commit adultery except on these few occasions.
Yeah.
Actually, there's the one of the second to the last verses in the Bible says, if anyone should change the words that are written in this book, or take out the words that are written in this book, I will take his name out of the book of life. And if anyone adds to the book, he will add to them a stronger condemnation.
Oh, Mary.
So it actually,
Wow, that's so powerful in light of this.
Toward the end of Revelation.
It's how the Bible how God chose to end the Bible. The very.
Because
that in itself is terrifying.
If we change
because-
the words, God is the word, we are not worshiping God anymore.
Good point.
I mean, that just blew my mind when you said I put all that together.
We're worshiping our
No
own
wonder
creation.
it's such a big deal, because we're
Good
no
point.
longer, we're creating a new God to worship.
It
In-
is.
In the rewriting by certain people, they completely ignore that passage. Look at the Jefferson Bible. You know, this is if you're not familiar with it, the Jefferson Bible is where Thomas Jefferson went through and he removed all of the supernatural claims in the Bible. And you look at, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and everything else like that, how they change things, like in John 1:1.
Yep. Thank God.
Because it doesn't suit their viewpoint.
That's a
So
very
there is those things happening, but not in classical Christianity.
no.
Well,
It just
just,
doesn't happen.
and also keeping in mind that just because we change the text, that does not change
Change who
reality,
God is.
right?
True.
Yeah.
So that's the awesome, that's sort of the thing to be feared and scared is just because we change it, we are fooling ourselves
That's right.
and misleading others.
Good job, guys. Next week we got chapters 5 and 6. You can keep that book. If you have the book, I want to buy. If anybody needs a book, I have 2 copies left at home. If you need that book?
I'm going to order it on Audible.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's not available on Audible.
Oh, it
It's
isn't?
not. Yeah.
It's available on
it's-
Kindle on Audible.
So there's not an audiobook of it. I'm guessing?
Trust me, I tried.
So then can I?
Yes.
review them?
So there's one book up here if anybody needs it. That's it.
Hey, Steve, although you didn't point it out as much, but what struck me very quickly when Freud says, here is why the assumption, without even proving, is that there is no God. In other words, here's how religion was created.
Based on no
The
God.
first assumption that you have to make is that it was created,
Yeah.
rather than of course, that applies only to Christianity,
Yes.
right? Not to the other religions, because the other religions weren't
Correct.
created. Right, so, well, but he starts with an assumption that that religion was created, and if you point to Christianity, that's not the case, right?
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
He's saying that he's not receiving, the notes by, email.
The questions?
Email.
No, the notes, weekly notes.
And, you know,
I sent them out two separate emails this week.
Okay, I have.
Did you get the questions?
No, I didn't get the question.
All right, make sure I got your email.
Okay.
Make sure I have it.
Well, yeah,
They don't have.
Good points, Barry.
So look for stage one.
Not my points.
I know. Still, always good to bring them up.